and welcome to SABIFF 2022. I am Ada Bobino, the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. We want to thank you for tuning in to Fruit. We have a very special discussion following that includes the filmmaker, Ricardo Bates, and we're going to bring him on. I'm going to first introduce our host, who's going to be speaking with one-on-one with Ricardo. We'll bring in Shawande T'Chawa, and Shawande and I go back. He's a fellow filmmaker as well out of Washington, D.C., and I wanted to have a brother-to-brother conversation, so I'm gonna X my way out, and you can introduce Ricardo, and let's get going and talk about Fruit, black boys, mentorship, and more. All right, thank you. Hey, Ricardo, how are you?
How's everybody doing this morning?
Hey, how you doing, Ricardo?
Good.
Everything's all good.
So
All
I'm going
right.
to introduce you. Ricardo is out of Houston. He's a native of Alabama, and this is his second feature documentary entitled Fruits. The first was I want to say the Primeville
Prattville way.
Prattville Way,
Yes,
about
ma'am.
a football team in Alabama. So we'll talk about that and more. But gentlemen, enjoy the discussion, and I will see you all on the back end. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
All right. Well, welcome again, Ricardo. First of all, I want to say that I was very impressed with your film, Fruit. I wasn't familiar with your prior film, The Prattville Way,
hmm
but is there a running theme between the two films?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a running theme, but I guess there's some elements that you can pull from both that are similar.
Okay.
The first one, the Prattville way, speaks on about a football team that overcomes adversity to reach a common goal. But at the same time, with Fruit, you're dealing with specifically these African American boys who are, in spite of the circumstances that they come from, they have to rise above those. So I guess it's a triumphant story if you want to
Okay.
look at the elements that they share.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, what is your inspiration for creating these films? What drives you?
What drives me? I think with every project that I do, I guess the ultimate goal, or the one goal that I always have in common, or that I strive for, is I want to produce change agents, and I
Hmm.
want to spark conversations that'll affect change. And at this point, I'm really not interested in creating content unless it, sparks a conversation that's going to bring about the necessary change to make society better.
One thing about Fruit that made it feel at home was that every now and then they would refer to you. These people definitely had a personal connection with you, and they would call you by name when you were interviewing them. And actually, that was a nice touch.
Right.
Um, so, how did you get involved uh, with people from so many different walks of life, but shared this one common goal for Fruit?
Uh, so yeah, with Fruit, that's all credit to my mentor, Anthony Brock, who owns Valiant Cross Academy, who's the head of school at Valiant Cross Academy in Montgomery, which is the one that you saw in the film. Uh, that was relationships that he had established over the years with all of those people who were doing some important work in the city of Montgomery, and really having those outreach programs that's really striving to put these kids in a better position. So with the first name basis name, and that all stems from the relationships and the connections that he had with those individuals who are really in the trenches and really putting in the work on a daily basis.
And tell me a little bit about your background.
As far as where did I come from, or
Pri-
just the journey?
yeah, and how you connect with these kids in the documentary, or even or even the instructors? How do you
Right.
connect with the subject matter?
So,
How yeah.
yeah, so that's a great question. So me growing up in Prattville, I was raised by a single parent mother, right? My father was
Hmm.
in and out. Um, so when you look at these kids who go to this school, they come from similar paths and similar backgrounds of single parent, or they're growing up in environments that are not so great for them, which was the same with me. And having somebody when I was in fifth grade, actually, Anthony Brock, he's been my mentor since I was 11 years old. And having that person that was there to fill that void um, really, truly connected me to the content because I lived it. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Do-
like we did a screening actually in Montgomery when we first premiered it, and I made the comment of, my mother, um, love her dearly, gave me everything, but the one thing she could not give me was she couldn't teach me how to be a man. So I
right.
was so fortunate to have people along in my journey, whether it was coaches, whether it was mentors like Anthony, to step up and really show me this is how a man moves and operates, because she couldn't do that. Like, she was limited in what she could do.
Got you.
Hmm.
Got you. Um, so Anthony Brock was actually a father figure for you.
Yeah, father figure, um, big brother type. Yeah, just
Hmm.
really who showed me the right way of how a man is supposed to live.
Hmm. And but one thing that I noticed there, it was the reason I asked you if we shared fraternity membership in common, because there's a program that I did that's very similar. I don't know if you can see that photo on the wall of mine, and it's, yeah, of course I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and I had a program called Know Your History, which was a mentorship program
Hmm.
that actually taught kids the African and African American history that they don't get
Right.
in the school system. So that was, 30 years ago. So I guess it was critical race theory before it had a name.
Yeah. So did you say you were a member of Kappa?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, that's interesting. Anthony Brock is a member of that as well.
Ah, okay. Ah, no
Yeah.
wonder it seemed familiar. No wonder it seemed familiar. So, okay, okay. Well, he sounds like a good man, and I know he's a good man. So yeah. The so the so the kids that are impacted. How many? How long has the program been running, and how many kids have been impacted from the program, by the program rather?
Which program are you speaking to?
Valiant Cross Academy.
So the school started in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
This year, they actually had their first graduating class. When they initially started, they started with 30 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they added on a class each and every year until ultimately you have the senior class. So as far as how many have been impacted, I can't really pinpoint a number, and you don't really know the true impact of the things that you're pouring into kids' lives until they come back and you see what
Right.
they become, right? So you
Right.
never know the
Right.
true. It's like
Right.
me.
Right.
It's like I'm an educator. I'm an assistant principal, right? So you never know the seeds that you're planting. You never know what fruit is going to bear into these kids blossom, and they come back
Right.
and tell you, like,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
But I know I can't specify a number, but the work that they're doing at that school in Montgomery is like vital.
Yeah. And like they say, all it takes is one.
It's all it takes.
If you reach one, then you done your job.
Right.
And I know in my personal experience, yeah, I get more out of it than they do.
Right.
so
For
So,
sure.
yeah. Um, is there, well, one, are you still connected to the academy? And two, do you know of the academy's plans for expansion, like maybe replicating this program in another city or state?
Um, am I connected with the program?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's I am connected to the program because again, like I connect with those kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And definitely it would have been something so much needed if I was that age. Like I would have loved to have been a part of something like that, going to that school where it was so much
Mm-hmm.
structure and discipline. And then you have the Christian component to it as well. So those kids are learning about God and getting the structure and the discipline along with the athletic component. So it just has everything that you need to be successful. So as far as being connected with the school, Anthony and I speak on a daily basis. As far as them replicating, I'm not sure. Um, I don't want to speak for him, but
Okay.
I will say this: a school of this magnitude and what they're doing with people that look like us, it would be extremely critical and important. And I think it's needed in every city where you go to a school when majority of the teachers look like you and they're educated and they speak properly and they dress well, all right, and they're loving on you and they're respecting you and they see
Mm-hmm.
you as the beautiful black, king that you are, right? So I think it's definitely needed in every city.
Another thing that I found impressive was this continuum of activism and civil rights struggle. Uh, and it was a little sobering as well because you have this woman who, as a child, was involved in marching with Dr. King, and 50, 60 years later, almost 60 years later, you know, we're dealing with some of the same issues.
Right. So uh, the woman you're referring to is Mrs. Cheyenne Kreisberg. She was known
Hmm.
as the smallest freedom rider, and it's just it's like one of those humbling moments, right?
Right.
When I initially met her, and just to hear her story and everything that she's went through, right, and to be at that age of 8 years old, like standing up to that type of oppression, like that takes a lot of courage, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's not like this time in 2022 where you're protesting, you're marching down and all that stuff, right? You're talking about back in the day where they would like stick dogs on you and water hoses and you get
Right.
killed and lynched
Right.
for all this stuff, right? So and at 8 years old to have that awareness, like I want to be a part of this. This is going to move us forward, and this is not right. So it's just a testament to her, and just to hear her stories is humbling, right? And it lets you know, like, man, you have, like, you think you're doing something right, with like you're reaching these kids. It's like, man, I got so much more work to do. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you have so much
Right.
work to do, but
And
it was a beautiful experience, though.
yeah, and to bring it into perspective, you have Tiffany Crutcher,
Right,
who is, the sister of Terrence Crutcher,
right,
that brings it, that kind of brings it full circle. I mean,
right,
why we have to
right.
struggle,
March and do all that
why we
stuff.
have to continue to do it.
Yeah.
So
So Tiffany
go ahead.
Crutcher, really, really good friend of mine. Um, she actually um, invited us to Tulsa, where we premiered the film for the centennial of Black Wall Street, and that was just a mind blowing experience. And we just thank her so much for allowing us to come out to our city and showed us so much hospitality and just learning about the truth about what everything that unfolded on those days, man. It was just because it's one thing that the media tries to tell you, and then it's another to hear from the people, like the source. of like what
Mhm.
really happened, and it just blows your mind. Like it blows your mind, like how much adversity and all the things that we have to overcome as a people because we were flourishing, like hotels, all these businesses. Like we
Mhm.
didn't have to go over to another town for anything, right? And to see what it's been reduced to, like it's a
Yeah.
tragedy, man. Like what it's been, like all these acres of just black excellence, right? Everybody owns stuff, land, businesses, nice houses, right? And to see that it's been reduced to like one street, it's like mind blowing.
Yeah. And what's historically significant, and I can't overemphasize this because it's always underemphasized, and in the community at large,
Hmm.
is that the bombing of Tulsa was the first incident of the United States government sanctioned bombing of its own citizens.
Hmm.
I mean that is still mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then the second is Philadelphia when
Right.
they bombed Move in 1985.
Yeah.
It's just
We have to deal with a lot as black people,
right,
but
right,
we have to. But the but the crazy part is you have to walk around with a smile like nothing affects us, right?
exactly. And I mean, and it's all over. It's insecure white folks
Right.
who hate to see you having more than they have.
Right. Right. That's very very true. It's very very true. Um, People never want to see you doing better than them.
Exactly. And but these are also the same. I mean, it's almost like schizophrenia because these are the same people that will be the first to say, "Pull yourself out by your bootstraps."
Hmm.
You know, the first to paint you as lazy.
Right.
But then when you put the effort in and you put the work in and you end up doing better than them, I mean, that's a
But
sickness to want to eliminate you for
right.
one.
And that's why schools like Valiant Cross Academy is so
Hmm.
needed because
Absolutely.
as black kids at a young age, you have to get that reassurance of knowing your worth and knowing who you are, right? Because if
Right.
not, you will have outside voices, like putting the labels on you, right? So you
Hmm.
have to have somebody breathing positivity. You have to have somebody saying you are this king. You can do these amazing things. Um, my mentor always says, and which is really profound to me, he always says he doesn't believe in an achievement gap, right? He's always preaching,
Hmm.
he believes in opportunity and exposing these kids to certain things is going to put them in a better position.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I can't wait to see, you know, the paths that some of the graduates will take as a result of participating in this program.
Right,
Because we another similarity is that the chapter of my fraternity, we have an aviation program as well,
right.
and the kids, like getting in that plane, taking the 7 week course is, I mean, you just see the growth. So tell me about Fruit and the title and how that came about.
So fruit is based on the scripture Matthew 7:16. It's by their fruit you will remember them. And I thought the title was so fitting, right? Because we're always talking about your legacy and talking about the impact uh, that you're going to make. And you're always striving as a person, you should be trying to make an impact on as many people as possible. And you just never know, like you saw in the film, you just never know which way you're going to influence people. When everybody's carrying a bag of seeds in their pocket, everybody's going to make an impact on somebody, whether it's positive or negative, intentional or not. And that's what we wanted to do. I think it was just straight to the point, fruit. And by the fruit, you will remember them. You will remember your works. You remember the impact that you made, and you remember all the seeds, that you planted.
So how has this film changed you, or has it changed you?
Has it changed me?
Yeah, making the making of this
Like,
documentary.
yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, the ultimate goal with this was to produce change agents, right? And I wanted to have like a guide or a blueprint to this is what mentoring looks like. These are people who are doing the works. This is how they started with it. Because as we've been going on these film tours and doing these Q&As and panels, that's been the brunt of the questions is how do you do this, right? Like, how do you start, right? Because Anthony just didn't start with a whole school, right? Like, he started working with brother to brother with about 30, 40 kids. And then that got up to like 100 kids. And then, he's an educator, principal as well. And then now he has his whole school where that message is, being carried out to a bunch of kids. But it's always steps to, you can't just go from, one kid to now you got your whole school. But anybody can mentor someone. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to be in somebody's life every day, but you have to be intentional with forging those relationships and pouring in, positive affirmations to those people. Because at the end of the day, as we all know, all kids want to be loved, even the ones who act so tough and, are harder to break through. I mean, at the same time, they just want somebody that they want to know that somebody really cares and somebody's not going to give them up at the weak sign of, I'm pushing away from you and all that, because everybody wants to be loved.
Yeah, and another thing that really impressed me about your documentary was the balance, because one could look at like Anthony Brock and say, well, yeah, I mean, he went to college, blah blah blah. They'd almost expect for him to do it, but then you have the owner of Hot Dog Jr.
Oh yeah, that's my dog.
And I mean, yeah, that's my dog. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's my dog.
Right.
And it really drives the point home that anyone can be a mentor.
Right, because you never know. I mean, you never know what somebody's trajectory is.
Exactly.
We can't put a label on someone because they had a few hiccups along the way. And I think that's what we get caught up into with in education. Like, you want to label a kid if he had a run-in with a teacher, or you had a couple of discipline issues, and you want to write somebody off, right? Maybe you just haven't had that right person that connects, right, with that particular kid. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad kid, right? Making poor choices. But just like me, I came from circumstances in a neighborhood where, it was a couple gang activities, drugs, right? A lot of single parent. And I went to, college, got masters and, doing films and all that stuff. But I've had other friends who were not so lucky on the other side of the coin that ended up in jail or, made poor choices that set them back, right? But at the same time, you can learn from anybody, whether it's a felon, whether it's a professor or a teacher or anybody, like experiences, right? Just to show somebody, hey, don't do that because I did this, or, here's path A, path B, like, right? Like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. If you do that, this is what's going to happen. So you can learn from anyone. And Charles Lee, the owner of That's My Dog, he's definitely a testament to that, man. And the things that he's doing, like he has that, That's My Child. He has a teen and work program where all these kids are employed. And that's the best way, like he says, the best way to stop a bullet is a job.
Yeah, how about that?
Like seriously, like the best way to stop a bullet is a job.
Yeah, and you know, and I mean, I wasn't aware of all the other programs that he had. I was aware of the him employing the youth, but
Right.
man, that man stays busy.
Yeah, you gotta stay working, one foot in front of the other. That's the only way you're gonna make a difference.
And just to continue on the theme of balance, it was equal male and female energy in your piece,
Right.
and they all had that fire.
Right. Yeah.
They were all driven, to serve our youth. And if we could just like bottle that,
right,
we'd be free tomorrow.
No, in that, yeah. Even though we're talking about male mentorship, right? But at the same time, man, it takes a village from the men and the women to be a collective to get this, because this ain't for the faint of the heart. Like, it's not for the weak. It's
Right.
gonna be days where you're gonna want to give up, right? It's gonna be days like, man, dude, I really want to deal with this. Like, especially, but check this out. Like, especially, and what's so beautiful about it is when you're mentoring, you're like, man, I'm going through the fire and I'm doing all of this for other people's kids, like not my own blood, right? So it takes a special type of person to endure all of that and to keep getting up and to keep getting up and to keep getting up, because like you have to, because the young generation is counting on us. And so it takes a special type of person, and I commend and take my hat off to anybody who's in the trenches. Whether you're mentoring one or two kids or you have a whole school, it's a beautiful thing to see, because we're all supposed to be of service to somebody, right? We're supposed to pull the next person up, right? And if I truly believe, if you're not pouring into a young person, like, what are you really doing?
Right.
What are you really doing? It's like nobody cares about your degrees. Nobody cares about your house or your car that you drive, right? Like, who are you helping? Who are you making an impact on? Like, that's what you're going to be judged on.
Yeah, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Yeah. Like, and even in a sense, like I'm not blessed enough to have children of my own just yet, but it's like I hear my friends talk and they say, one of my friends is an educator, and he's like, man, my kid doesn't know what I do. He just knows that's daddy. Right? He doesn't care what I do. Right? Like, he just knows daddy's home. Well, why isn't daddy home? Yeah. So it's like that. It just wants you to be around.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
What's next for me?
Yeah, as far as is this it? Like, you've made your statement and you're done with the filmmaking?
No, of course not. And so, crazy story about that. So I come from Alabama, and the town that I'm from, Prattville, is really sports dominant, right? Football, to be specific. Football is king. And when I was 12 years old, I remember watching Remember the Titans with Denzel, and I thought the film was so beautiful. And I remember watching it differently, right? I was like, oh man, I like the way this moved, or I like the way this happened, but I couldn't put it into like film terms yet. I didn't know what it was, right? But the curiosity behind it. And I wasn't able to say anything about it because it's like where I grew up from, that's all you talked about was sports, right? So when I got out to Houston to really be able to like explore that curiosity of like, oh, this is what it is. This is this type of angle. This is what this is. This is this type of camera they use to do that. And getting with like-minded people, like, I'm in love with this stuff. Like, but
Yeah.
it has to be, but
Mhm.
it has to be anything that I associate myself with or tie myself with. It has to be something that's sparking a conversation and moving the needle and progressing us as a people. Like I'm not
And
interested in anything else.
and just a really really quick story. I don't know if you know about the writer of Remember the Titans, Gregory Allen Howard, but he wrote that after he got fired from a telemarketing job in LA because he couldn't get work as a filmmaker as a writer.
Hmm.
And he came and he came back to the East Coast and he heard this story about the coach and
Hmm.
TC Williams. And I mean he was at his lowest when he wrote that story.
Yeah. See, and that's the beautiful thing with art, man. You never know where the
Hmm.
inspiration comes from. And like,
Absolutely.
and even just one of my heroes, man, like Ava DuVernay, one of my like film heroes, and the way that she's, giving all these opportunities to people of color and minorities, like her not even like picking up a camera until she was like, I believe 32, 33 years old. Right? And then
Hmm.
looking at what she's this force right now. So you just never know what your path is. All I can continue to do is to put forth a good product with a great message, and the people who are going to receive it is going to be the people who are going to receive it. That's all. That's
And
all I can control.
absolutely. And so how would you define success? Excuse me. How would you define success for the film Fruit?
How I would define it, I think the success is in um, people being inspired to get into the lives of young people, like plain and simple. Like I've had so many people that have reached out to me because it premiered back home on a news station, WSFA, and it was like one of the most watched programs in their history.
Mhm.
And reading all of the comments and all the stuff from all these people about how they're moved and everybody and saying stuff like everybody needs to see this, like schools, districts. And then the thing was coming from people, you know, not saying you seek validation or anything, but like getting compliments from people who are not of the same race as us and saying how they were so compelled and moved by it. It's like, okay, now we're having now we opened up the door to have these conversations of
Right.
why these young people are in these predicaments, right? So that's success for me. People who are moved to get into the lives of young people with fruit. And as of right now, I think it's been well received. Um, people are people are making those changes, or if they already are involved in lives of young people, like it's more of a sense of urgency on their end.
Yeah. Because
Right?
what that, like I said, what your documentary drives home is that our work is not over.
It's never.
You know, our work is not over. Over 60 years of struggle, and that's just contemporary.
Hmm.
You know, we're still dealing with the same thing.
Right.
So when people who are not, African American can connect and relate, hopefully it'll change some minds and hearts so that this problem of racism will slowly fade away.
I mean, at the end of the day, racism is alive and well. Right? We all know that.
Yep.
It's just in different forms of what it is. Classism and people, it's not so much them in your face calling you the N word or lynching or anything of that magnitude, egregious of that sort, but it's definitely out there in different forms. And I think we have to get to the root of how can we change people's hearts? Like how can we tap in and change people's heart? Because if you don't change someone's heart, right,
Yeah.
it's never gonna be changed. Because look at it, like if you look at a little kid, 2 kids, right, black and a white kid, like they don't know black from white or white from black or white right from wrong or hate love or anything like that. Like they just naturally go play with whoever, right? Until somebody older tells them like, hey, this skin is bad or that is bad, right? And then you start to plant that stuff into their minds at a young, impressionable age. So I think we have to really do the work on changing somebody's heart.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that, you know, those messages don't take place in the school, they take place in the home.
Right. I think
but kids bring that to the school.
Yeah. Like we always say in education, these kids bring in a second backpack of emotions and things that they've acquired from home. And I think the school should be an extension of the home, right? Like I know a lot of people complain, say, "Oh, if you brought us, if the parents would give us a better product to work with, right, then the schools will be better." But it's like, this is what we're dealing with. So how can we look at the glass half full and implement some things that's going to get these kids on the right trajectory?
And one thing that I thoroughly enjoyed was just the elation on those kids' faces when Michael B. Jordan visited.
Right.
I mean, they were in such disbelief.
Killmonger, huh? Killmonger, but
how'd that happen?
So he was in town. I don't know if you saw the film Just Mercy, who is based on Brian.
Oh, Stevenson. right, Brian Stevenson, right?
Yeah, who's founder of the EGI,
Equal Justice Initiative,
which is the school. So a little bit about the school. It's on Dexter Avenue, which is like the hub, right? It has Dr. Martin Luther King Church is right across the street. The Capitol is right up the road. The EGI is right around the corner. You have the Rosa Parks Museum. This is right down the road. Like it's just like in the center of all like this Black excellence, right? So he was in town filming the Just Mercy movie, which they did a couple of the scenes in Montgomery. And he was riding by and he saw the kids out there with their, bow ties and all that stuff. So he thought it was pretty cool. And he stopped out to see what was going on. And that's how that happened.
Wow. So and that's even more impressive.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like a prearranged visit or Yeah,
and Anthony said he was sitting in his office and he just heard the kids screaming and all that stuff. He was like, what is going on down there? And he goes out there. It's like Michael B. Jordan is out there. So, yeah, it's a lot of people that stopped by that school. Beautiful thing. But again, it was a special time because
it was.
When Black Panther came out, man, it was just like evolution, right? Like it was like mania, like pandemic. Like it was like crazy. It was like the biggest thing, So it's really a monumental film, and to see one of the lead characters, I mean, it's a special treat for those kids.
So what are some of the parting words of wisdom that you'd like to give the viewers of this interview?
Parting words of wisdom. I think, I guess parting words of wisdom would be, it's going to be tough, right? The fight is going to be tough, but at the same time, understand that what you're doing serves a greater purpose. These kids, they definitely need us. They need us to love on them, whether it's tough love. They need us to not give up on them. They need us to just continue to be that light because, sometimes you are that only positive light that they encounter on a daily basis. They may be dealing with so many things in a negative sense at home, but when they come around and be in your presence, and it's like, it's that reassurance. Like I can be something great. So continue to pour positive affirmations into them. Continue to be in the trenches and just continue to lead with love. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Ada Bobineau.
No, I wanna thank you so much for joining us. Nice discussion.
Yes,
I want
ma'am.
to know. I mean, for me, this film needs to be something that is in mentoring groups, such as fraternities, sororities, 100 Black Men, Concerned
Right.
Black Men. So, how can people get a hold of Fruit if they want to rent it or purchase it for their endeavors?
So as of right now, it's not available for purchase, but we are doing it. We're traveling and we're doing all of these speaking engagements as far as like showing the film, uh, partnering with all of these youth organizations in the cities. So
So I posted Bateman House Productions. So that's how they can get in contact with you if they
right,
want to reach you for any further questions or speaking engagements or what have you. So that I do want to put that up there.
right,
And I just want to thank you for the work you're doing and for your vision to create additional films that speak to something that you're passionate about, something that we need in this world. So I
right.
applaud you on that front, and I want to thank you, Shawande, for hosting. I want to stick around because I want to come back with something for both of you. But I want to just invite everybody to keep watching SABIFF. Keep us on your dial in social media. We have the upcoming festival is going to be October 6th through 9th, so mark your calendars for that. And other than that, you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Look forward for more
All right.
productions from both of you.
Okay. Thank you.